Welcome. On behalf of the Clinton Public Schools, Superintendent Jack Cross, Principal Carrie Hagnes, and the Morgan Political Club, welcome to tonight's 2013 Clinton First Selectmen's debate here at Gagnon Auditorium. I'm Eric Bergman, Faculty Advisor for the Morgan Political Club. Tonight's debate will include Democratic incumbent Willie Fritz, Republican challenger Phil Sengle, and Clinton First challenger Vince Cimino. As for rules and format, the debate will begin with a 3-minute opening statement from each of our participants. Straws were drawn earlier to determine order. From here, students will ask candidates a variety of town-related questions. These questions will be asked by student members, affording the candidates 3 minutes to respond and allowing 1 minute rebuttal time for each candidate if need be. A yellow card will indicate to the speaker that 20 seconds remain for their response. A red card simply means time is up. The topics will include economic development, education, wastewater, general town functions and responsibilities, and the future of Clinton as a community. The second part of the debate will involve questions from the general audience. Please give your questions to a club member as soon as you can. We will afford time for 3 audience questions. These questions should be fair yet probing. In the interest of decorum, we will avoid any questions that personally attack a candidate's integrity or character. You be the judge to whether these questions maintain this level of civility. Again, 3-minute response, 1 minute rebuttal. We will end the evening's proceedings with a 3-minute closing statement. I wish to provide you with the mission statement of the Morgan School. The Morgan School cultivates intellect and character in partnership with families and community. Students learn in a rigorous and academic and student-centered environment that prepares them to become resourceful, productive, healthy citizens in a global society. Since we hold our students to such high standards, I will ask you, interested and informed citizens, to show our students here what character is about. Consequently, may we avoid brash and inflammatory disruptions throughout tonight's event. These gentlemen have volunteered their time to come before you in an open and honest setting. Regarding the Morgan Political Club, I have proudly advised this group since our inception in 2005. Our mission is to provide students with a non-judgmental environment in which members can debate, explore, and often bend their opinions about political issues on a local, state, national, and sometimes international levels. We meet each Tuesday after school, at which time speakers as varied as Democratic U.S. Congressman Sam Gainson, former 2nd Congressional candidate Daria Novak, 2006 Green Party gubernatorial candidate Cliff Thornton come to speak. All views are welcomed, all views are respected. We believe that the exchange of ideas is vital to a healthy and vibrant democracy. We also host state, Senate, and House debates and occasionally take field trips for general enrichment. If you have specific questions for one candidate, including candidates for at-large positions on the board, you can visit us after the debate in the lobby for a very short, informal greeting meeting. We do, however, understand that we are competing against Game 5 World Series, so keep that in mind. Now, Morgan Political Club member Eli Phelps, who will act as tonight's moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Bergman. We drew straws, and Mr. Cimino won and elected to go first. So please, a 3-minute opening statement from you, Mr. Cimino.
Thank you, Eli. First of all, I'd like to thank the Morgan Political Club and Eric for this opportunity, and thank you to all of you for coming out tonight, because the most important thing is that you become informed and you participate. And that's what we hope to do tonight. We hope to inform you and participate. And my name is Vince Cimino. I'm the candidate from the Clinton First Party, which is a brand new party here in town that is made up of unaffiliated Republican and Democratic members who believe that neither of the major parties have lived up to their promises. I believe that's a general feeling across the country, and the recent government shutdown that we witnessed is evidence of that. 8 years ago, when the current First Selectman took office, of course he spoke of economic development, solving the wastewater issue, and improving the town in general. It's 8 years later, and the question that you need to ask yourself is, have we solved the wastewater issue, or are we once again being told there's a plan that's going to come out someday? And taxes have just continued to rise. 8 years ago, the taxes were 20% less than they are at this time. And have you received that value for the increase in taxes? I'm going to be talking to you this evening about my plans for the town, my plans for wastewater solution, my plans for economic development. We're going to be talking about education and the town in general, and our plans for the future. And thank you again for attending.
Thank you, Mr. Cimino. Mr. Sengle has elected to go second.
Yes, hi, good evening. My thanks also to the Morgan Political Club and to their advisor Eric Bergman, and of course to our audience, which I think will grow a little more as we go on here. But I especially want to thank my wife Linda, who's sitting down here, for putting up with me for 45 years and allowing me to do this. It's probably not her favorite thing to have me do, so I thank you. I want to tell you a little bit about myself because I haven't lived here forever. I grew up in Berlin, Connecticut, not Berlin, Berlin, Connecticut. I went to Hartford State Technical College. I went into the U.S. Navy after that, and I became the leading petty officer for electronics on a ship called the USS Eagle Grove, responsible for maintenance of the radar, the navigation equipment, the fire control equipment, and all the various communications gear that we had. Subsequent to that, we got married. We moved to Eastern Pennsylvania, where I attended the Lafayette College School of Engineering and got a degree in electrical engineering. After that, I went to work for the Bell system at the time, and I worked at Bell Laboratories in the semiconductor division, where we designed, built, and tested memory devices and other semiconductor devices. Fascinating situation. Moved back to Connecticut. I worked for SNET. Some of the younger folks may not know what that is. Southern New England Telephone. But wherever I've been, I finished my career in San Antonio, Texas, working for Lucent Technologies, which is a spin-off of AT&T. Went through a number of positions after engineering in tech repping, technical sales, sales manager, and finally as a sales director. Wherever I've been involved in town affairs, whether it's in civic organizations like the JCs, or whether it's Little League coaching. Along with another fellow, we started a mid-level team in Plainville that still exists. I manage an American Legion team. I've been involved in charter revision commissions, and board of tax reviews, and school closing committees in that particular town. I came here and I said, actually I went to Willie Fritz, and not knowing that was probably supposed to be a no-no. And then I didn't hear anything for about 2 weeks, and I figured, well, that's the end of that. And then he calls me up, he said, you want to be on the Fair Rent Commission? And of course I said, yes. Well, I said, first, what's that? And I found out it's not exactly what it sounds, but became involved in that.
Mr. Sengle, I'm sorry, thank you very much, but I think that's your time.
Okay, fine.
And let's talk about Lafayette Engineering after this. And, I'm sorry, we want to remind the candidates, yellow card means you have 20 seconds remaining.
It's not like soccer, I guess, which I've never played. But I'm Willie Fritz. I'm the First Selectman. I won't go into much background other than I've been your First Selectman since 2005. I didn't say that I was going to take care of the wastewater, and we're still trying. One thing that did happen subsequent to my taking office regarding that was the town decided at that point we weren't going to discharge into a body of water, and here we are still looking for properties to do it so we can do subsurface discharge. So that is a monumental task, and they're still going forward. We've been all over the place, including school properties, privately owned properties, and they're still looking They have found some properties, but it's not as easy as they think. Everybody thinks you can just put a pipe in the ground, and if we could, and we could pump it into the Hammonasset River or send it somewhere else, it'd be easy, but it's not. We want to preserve our environment as well. You know, there are going to be some comments about what's happened in the last 8 years, and that's justifiable. I have a record. I've made mistakes. Anybody that's ever done anything makes mistakes. People that don't do anything don't make mistakes. Have the mistakes I've made cost the town? A little bit here and there. Have they ruined the town's reputation? No. Has the town gotten better in the last 8 years? Yes. Have we seen a lot of improvements in town in the last 8 years? Yes. Are we going to be able to build a new high school? Yes. Economic development. Here we are. We're sitting on it. The most valuable piece of retail property on the shoreline at this point is where we're sitting. As a matter of fact, those seats you're sitting in, you're going to be sitting in them in the new high school. Because we just put these in. We did them like 3-4 years ago. That was another project that I worked on. We got approved, and we put new seats. We revamped the auditorium. To save money, we're taking these seats and we're moving them up the road. Why wouldn't we? They're new. We're doing a lot of good stuff in this town. I had somebody come to me the other day, just moved from Madison. This is great. They lived a block and a half. You want to talk about taxes? They lived a block and a half from the water in Madison. Now they live one house up from the water in Clinton, down by the town marina. Same size house. Their taxes are 25% lower, same size house than what they were paying in Madison. So when I talk about taxes, and when I say that we're the lowest around per capita, and we are, it's based on property value. It's not that simple. You just can't go by mill rate. It's based on property value. We've gotten a lot of good things going in this town. I want to make sure we continue it. These two gentlemen, I give them credit for stepping up and trying to do this. I don't know why, Phil, your wife would want you to do this. I go home at night and Sandra doesn't sometimes even want to look at me. Neither do my boys, but it's a great time. And thank you so much for putting this on.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot to the candidates. I think everybody. Everybody brought up some details I think we're going to address in a little more depth with questions that students and the Morgan Political Club in particular has selected. Just to remind the audience, these will be 3-minute, each candidate will have an opportunity to answer a question for 3 minutes, and then each candidate will have an opportunity for a 1-minute rebuttal.
All right, the first question is, what are the 3 most important functions of the first selectman in the town of Clinton, and why would you be the best person to carry out these responsibilities?
And that is for Mr. Fritz first, and we'll move down the line.
There are a lot of functions of the first selectman, and most people, even the ones running for it, don't realize. The 3 most, obviously, are, again, economic development. We try, and we have, and our grand list, based on the number of commercial properties, has grown, and the number of personal property accounts has grown since 2005, in spite of being through the worst economic times since the Great Depression. We've been able to do that, okay? The other part is, tight budgets. You have to keep tight budgets. You have to maintain the basic services of the town and continue to try to ease the burden on taxpayers. And I think we've done that. We've been trying, and it's not as easy as everybody thinks. Your house costs go up, so does the town. Fuel goes up, electricity goes up, insurances go up, and you have to balance that with the services you need to provide. I've heard comments that public safety has been compromised. It has not. We have the same number of police officers we had 8 years ago. We have the fire department. We just got a new rescue truck. We got a new engine 3 years ago. We're continuing to go forward in that regard. And then probably the other thing is just running. It's a big picture, guys. It's not just one department or another. It's bringing all the departments, including education, together and getting everybody to play in the same sandbox. And I think we've done a good job with that. It's a big sandbox. You have to have everybody, every board, commission, every entity has focused on their job. And I have to, and the selectmen have to bring them together to focus on the big picture, which is the entirety of the town of Clinton, and those are the biggest challenges.
Thank you, Mr. Fritz. And next is Mr. Cimino. No, the rebuttals are 1 minute. They're allowed 3 minutes to answer these questions in the beginning.
The three most important functions of the First Selectman. Number one, the health and safety of the residents of the town of Clinton. And I want to emphasize that not solving the wastewater issue is not doing anything to improve the health and safety of the residents of Clinton. We will have a solution if I'm your First Selectman going forward. Number two, yes, we need to control taxes. People need to be able to afford to continue to live in Clinton. And that 20% tax increase that I talked about really wasn't necessary. And if it were not for the efforts that we put forward to defeat budgets, each of the last 3 years, you would have seen 10% higher taxes in town than what you have right now. So fortunately, people did become informed, got involved, and came out to defeat unnecessarily high budgets. Third, we need to move this town forward. Now, every other state in the country has seen economic growth during this past 12 months. Connecticut has not. Clinton has not. You see the empty storefronts, there's no reason for it. We still have large parcels of valuable land that have not been properly marketed, that haven't even been addressed, that if any other town had, they would be addressed and they would be filled by now. We are going to do that. We will have a plan that will work with these business owners, these property owners. We will fill the vacancies and we will make use of these very valuable tracts of land that are right now available to us. And while I agree that the high school property that we're sitting on right now is a very valuable resource, the people of Clinton need to decide what's going to go here. Not any little committee and not any board of selectmen. It needs to go to the public, and the public needs to consider all options that are presented to the town and decide what would you like here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cimino. And finally, Mr. Sengle.
Okay, you're going to hear some repeats here, economic development, but I always put the word private in front of it. Now, there's no other kind of development. You know, government spending is government spending. It all comes from us. We want private development. We want private money. You'll hear a lot about government projects that have been done around town, and that's all well and good. But what we want is private investment, because that's the only thing that's going to change downtown. So you have to incent people to want to invest in downtown. Now, how do you do that? Well, first, it sounds simple, but you got to be business friendly. You got to reach out to businesses, and I don't think we've been doing that. We may need to look at rezoning of downtown to encourage mixed use or other uses that are a higher and better use of the property, which will increase the property values, because the profit motive is still pretty much king in America, despite all the government spending. If you make the property more valuable, people will either invest in their property or say, you know, I've had it long enough, I want to go to Florida. They'll sell it to somebody who will. So I think those are proactive things that you have to do. And part of that is to meet with all our businesses. I've talked to some business owners. They've never been met with. I know there was a meeting with the National Mall Management, and somebody asked a question, when's the last time the town of Clinton called on you? And the answer was, well, when we opened. Well, that's pretty shocking. They've been here a while. They're our biggest taxpayer. So it's that kind of thing. It's an attitude that you have to adopt. Along with that, we have to have an economic development coordinator. This can't be done all by volunteers. It's folly to think that. We have a lot of wonderful volunteers. I'm one of them myself, as Vince Cimino has been in the past, but we can't rely on that any longer. The world is getting too complicated. The other one, the second one I would say is improvement in education. I'm a strong supporter of education. I have benefited mightily from my education. My two sons have benefited mightily because of their education. And for people to go around saying, I don't support education, is nuts. It's crazy talk. And it's spread, frankly, by my opponents, of whom I've got two. So you double your pleasure here. It's crazy. We have to market this new high school to draw young families. But I'll tell you what, the only way we're going to draw young families is to have a gifted and talented program in this school. So I support good education. We're going to have good walls at the new school, but it's what's taught inside the school. The third thing I just touched on, I'm out of time, is that we need to have a town planner, we need to have an economic development coordinator, and there's ways to do that without breaking the bank. But we can't afford not to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would any candidate like to rebuttal first? I wonder if Mr. Sengle wants to go again.
I get a kick out of, I don't support education. That's the first time I ever heard that. I always get accused of too much support of education.
I didn't say you don't support it.
He just said
You're accusing me of not
he just said
supporting
two
it.
candidates don't support education. He's looking at me. It's funny. My parents are both teachers. The Clinton School District, and it's a district now, I get a kick out of her. Everything changes. It was a public school system, now it's a district. Listen, it's gotten leaps and bounds better. The Board of Ed has done a great job. I think with the potential of new people on the Board of Ed too, as well, they continue to do a great job. The superintendent's done a great job. Our scores are going up, and I hate to judge it by test scores, but yeah, definitely. The education system in this town is getting better and better, and I love it. I got 3 kids, and as far as talented and gifted, I don't know how we got into it, but Wilson talented and gifted. We don't know how, but there is a talented and gifted program. So he's in it. And we talk economic development, it seems so easy.
I'm sorry, Mr. Fritz.
Oh, that's a minute. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So would Mr. Sengle like to rebuttal with, or Mr. Cimino?
Yeah. Thank you. With regard to education, we all support education. There isn't anybody in this room that's against education. And I've never said that Mr. Sengle or Mr. Fritz isn't against education. What I don't like is the path that the new school has taken. The town came out and voted to build a new school. But the town was showed at the cost of $19,000 for some architect's renderings, a school that was not what we built. And the superintendent is, I'm told, the person who decided that. It shouldn't have been the superintendent. It should have been the town. I speak with teachers and residents. No one likes the current layout with more absurd roof lines, a far more spread out layout, and I don't like the way that, I believe that the Board of Education needs to do its job and take control.
Great.
Okay, I never said Willie Fritz did support education. I said people are saying that I don't, and I said that's crazy, because I do. It's the most important. It's what made universal education is what made America great. Many countries still don't even have that today. So that's number one. You know, so and number 2, as far as the economic development goes, you know, government spending is not economic development. It's fine, we get some money from Harvard and all that stuff, but we need to really try to get private investment in here. And the third thing that I mentioned is we can't continue to do everything by volunteers because it doesn't get done. Like the zoning here is residential, we need a town planner to do that. So we can combine the positions, there's a way to do it, maybe part-time, but that's what I was talking about.
Great, thank you so much. I think we have a second question. And more after that, but first and second.
If elected, what would be your plan to resolve our long-standing wastewater issue?
Did everyone hear that? Yes, so we're starting with Mr. Cimino.
The wastewater issue should never have lasted this long. More than 10 years ago, there was a $500,000 study done, and it identified the Shongay property as being the best solution for wastewater treatment. And at the time, Mr. McCusker, former First Selectman, initiated the process of gaining access to the property for testing. After the change of administration, it was announced that that piece of property has been deemed by the state to be not appropriate for wastewater, but that's not true. And it is still the best solution, potential solution for wastewater treatment along with the Lapone property that we bought a long time ago. And my solution includes getting the state just bought this, supposedly a Shangay property, 147 acres for open space. Well, we should have fought that tooth and nail, and we should have told them we only need 10 acres approximately of that land to get on it, test it, and that will be a part of the solution. But in addition to that, we need to use the Lapone property. The decision to never put anything into a body of water is not correct. And with the modern technology that we have, the product of these wastewater treatment facilities is cleaner than the body of water it goes into. The plan that you're going to hear about that will be announced pretty soon is $55 million that will only provide us with community little septic systems that will only address current needs and do not address in any way, nor do they allow for any economic future development. My plan would be we look at the Shangay and Shrimp properties, we locate a wastewater treatment facility there as well as one on the Lapone property. We then are able to provide economic development for the future as well as addressing all of the current needs, and we certainly can charge sewer usage fees that will help us offset that expense as opposed to the current plan, which does not provide for any economic development, and in no way is that going to increase our tax base. Having a wastewater treatment solution will allow us to increase our tax base because we will become very attractive to businesses to locate here in Clinton where they can't locate anywhere else on the shoreline. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cimino. Next is Mr. Sengle.
Okay, as far as wastewater treatment goes, and as everybody I think knows, we're under an order for the state to fix it. This kind of thing's been going on since I think at least 1980. Mr. Fritz has been a selectman for 8 years. I would agree it's time to move along. But this is a very complex issue. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have been spent with engineers and consultants. But it is time. You wonder what's happened all these years. My issue with it is this. We want to have a solution that fits the needs of the future. And I know that sounds very general, but we want to do a minimal system. However, we want to design it so we can accommodate growth in certain areas, especially in commercial areas. Now, as somebody pointed out to me recently, and actually it was a letter to the editor of somebody I happen to know, that, gee, how come there's economic development in Old Saybrook and even Westbrook, Madison, Guilford, etc., but we don't have it here? And the implication is it's not for lack of a wastewater solution that's stopping economic development. It's because we're not doing all the other things that make us a business-friendly town. We don't reach out to people. We're not doing the blocking and tackling that we need to do. We don't have anybody to lead them through the process at town hall. But I would say that whatever system we come up with, it has to accommodate some growth so we can do economic development in the areas that are zoned for that. So it's going to be a very emotional thing, but it's got to be done. But a lot of the remediation can be done on site. In worse areas, it can be done by a community system. There are a lot of high-tech systems that can take care of this problem. There's one at the mall. If you go to Water's Edge, there's a basement area that's smaller than this, way smaller than this auditorium, processes all their waste. So there's a lot of solutions out there, and we just got to be smart about it, but it's time to move on. And if I'm first selectman, I'll get out of their way and make this, let this happen and ensure that they've got what they need to make it happen. It's time to move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sengle. Mr. Fritz.
Okay. You're right, the Shangay property was taken off the table, and then the DEP further taken it off the table. By purchasing it, we tried to purchase it. We had an appraisal done back in 2006, 2007. It was about 2.4. They wanted 3.1. We walked away. They weren't going to allow us access. We were in court. We walked away. They just sold it to the state for 1.2. Go figure. And that was me. I said, we're walking away. And Mr. Staunton's sitting right here, and he knows it was me. I said, we're not pursuing that property. The shrimp property always has had more potential, and we're still in court with them trying to get on that property. That's actually going up to the state Supreme Court at this point with an appeal. The decision to go and not go into the Hammonasset, this started before I got here. There was a pipe that Unilever was going to put down Route 1 that was going to take it right to the Hammonasset, which we could have tied into. And with hammer and tongs, the people from Madison and everywhere else, and some of our own Clinton people came over, and the state said, no way, we're not letting that happen. And the state was going to pay for it at that point. Part of it, anyway. It's not simple. Everybody thinks it's simple. Listen, civil engineering is what I did for a long time. I worked in a lot of town sewer treatment plants, sewer systems. It's not simple. Trying to find a piece of property, this subsurface discharge in this town, is tough at best. Between the ledge and the other soil conditions we have, there aren't a lot of properties that you can take probably 500,000 gallons a day in the long term and put it into the ground if you want to consider expansion. Community systems, we got Gina McCarthy to come down and talk about a hybrid, which could be community systems and on-site. She was a commissioner at DEP at that time. They're still working, they're still looking. We've looked at school properties, not a good political thing to do, but we did look at them. Whatever, we're looking, we've been looking, we're trying to find properties of subsurface discharge, and that's the goal. Small community systems work, but they're very costly. You have to maintain them. Putting the facility in, one facility costs a little bit more, but the maintenance of 3 small facilities costs probably more than maintaining one. We're still, and as far as economic development goes, yeah, I agree. Property values go up when you have sewers. But just how much do you want to see this town grow and expand? How much density do you want to have and not make and compromise the character of the town of Clinton as we have it right now? That's the key. You have to weigh the good with the bad. When you put sewers in a community, compromise the community's character. You have to consider that with any decisions you make regarding it. Obviously, the Hammonasset River, the old saying is, dilution is a solution. You could put it into the body of water, and you really would have no problems. But fighting with the state, fighting with the residents of Madison, and our own people, they are
Mr.
fish.
So this is again the 1-minute rebuttal round.
Okay, if the product coming out of a wastewater treatment facility isn't safe enough for the Hammonasset River, which I disagree with, but the plan you're going to hear about in the future includes wastewater discharge on our school grounds, which under no circumstances should ever be done or even considered. Second, the economic development that we need will not be solved by any type of small community systems. It's not an answer. We've spent another, on top of the initial $500,000 study, we've now spent over $300,000 additionally, and the solution was always there. It's the Shangay property. We should be fighting, and all we have to do, it's the state that gave us the mandate to solve the solution. They now own the property, and we say to the state, we need 10 of your 147 acres, and we will solve the mandated issue that you've presented us with. Thank you.
These high-tech systems, engineers will tell you you can drink the effluent that comes out of them, and I say to them, you first. No, it's probably true you could drink it, but the systems fail. That's the problem with going into the Hammonasset. You know, no matter how well you build them, they can fail. But as far as economic development goes, downtown is not a high needs area as determined by DEEP, our wonderful state agency. So that gets back to the point that there's something else stopping economic development downtown. It's not a wastewater solution problem. However, I think as I said, we've got to build a system that can accommodate some growth because we've got to grow the tax base. Absolutely got to grow the tax base. Otherwise, the taxes will continue to rise no matter who the first selectman is.
Great, thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Fritz, I apologize.
All right, we can find 10 acres on Shangay, but which 10? That's first of all. Secondly, when the purchase agreement was made with the DEP, covert operations. One hand is telling us to pursue the property, the other hand is going after it to purchase it. Now we're trying to recoup the 45% of the money that we spent, because they reimburse us 55% of the money we spent. We're trying to get the other 45%. Secondly, I agree, Phil. Drinking water standards. It's treated, same thing with putting if you had to, and we don't want to have to do that, we had to put it under the ball fields at the schools. It's drinking water standard. PERC would never allow it to come up, but again, it's a feel-good thing. Does it feel good? I don't know. Because now you're not allowed to combine sewers. You don't have the issues as you used to have with overflow and discharge into the river, because you're not getting stormwater infiltration in theory. But there's a lot of issues with this wastewater, and unfortunately years ago, and I'll go back 25, 30, it should have been handled then.
I'm sorry, Mr. Fritz, we gotta really shut down in 1 minute. Yeah. Third question?
In regards to taxes, discuss your thoughts about the current mill rate. What, if any, town services and functions need to be reevaluated?
And that starts with Mr. Sengle.
The question was your thoughts on the current mill rate and what needs may have to be evaluated. To an extent, Mr. Fritz is correct that a lot of homes and properties in Clinton are not appraised at the same rate as they are in Madison, so therefore that does lower the tax burden. But again, nobody's average, and somebody that owns a larger home probably doesn't feel comforted by that fact that a lot of the other homes may have lower value. And also, that logic does not apply to businesses. They pay the full rate on their property and their equipment. It does not apply to motor vehicles. You know, this is a big argument in Hartford about should they do something with the motor vehicle tax rate. If you live in Bridgeport or Hartford, you're going to pay a lot more even than here. The tax rate is the result of our budgets, which reflects our planned spending. That's not always what we spend, but it reflects a plan for spending, and it reflects our tax base. So you have to affect one of those two things or both of them to ever get the mill rate down. And I think it's unrealistic to cut too much out of your budget. So what I always say is you have to grow your way to prosperity. You can't cut your way to prosperity. Now, it may feel good for some people, cut things for a year, but you'll be right back, you know, the next year spending more. So ultimately, when it comes to the tax rate, the only way we can stabilize it, maybe have some hope of reducing it someday, is to grow the tax base. It all gets back to economic development and, you know, who you believe is going to do something about it. Because I want to do something about it. I've got a plan. I've published it. You've probably seen it in the Harbor News. It's on our website. It's on our handout. You know, we have a plan. So we plan our work, and we're going to work our plan. You know, nobody plans to fail, but people fail to plan. And I think this town has failed to plan. And when you fail to plan, a lot of bad things happen. And you got to ask yourself, you know, are you better off than you were 8 years ago when you look around downtown Clinton? So I think those things are going to will take care of themselves. It's a long-term, you know, process. A friend of mine said, you know, spending's easy, feels good, instant gratification, and the bills come due. But making money, which in our case means raising your tax base, is hard work, and it takes a long time. But you know, a trip of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. And we gotta start. We've been talking about it. We need to do something about it. And that's how we tackle the mill rate, is by growing the tax base. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sengle. And that goes back to Mr. Fritz.
Okay, so we're talking about economic development again. We're back to that, and you know, I love the little acronyms and all this stuff you come out with. But where do you get those sayings?
If we could limit the back and forth banter between the candidates, that would be fantastic.
You know, hey, this is a friendly forum, and I like to have fun with the guys, and I hope they'll have fun with me. This isn't personal. This is about the town of Clinton. And I go back to, you know, growing the tax base and the taxes and the mill rate. The mill rate is a derivative, and it's a big word. You high school kids probably know that word, derivative. It's a derivative of three things. It's your grand list, it's your expenditures, and your revenues, okay? And whatever your grand list and your expenditures, and then your revenues you get from the state and all the other stuff you do with the town with fees and such, that determines what your tax levy is going to be, okay? Our grand list in 2005 jumped because of a reval by 25%. At that time, our mill rate was at 31, almost 32. Our mill rate then went down to 19, okay? And then it went up to, it was about 22, 23 and change. 22, I believe. And then we had another rebound 5 years later. 10% of our grand list dropped, as did every other town around us. Okay? It's not, we're not an anomaly here in Clinton. Everybody likes to think we're an anomaly. By virtue of that, without raising another dime in revenue and expenditures, our mill rate jumped by 2.34. Okay? Just based on grand list and expenditures, consistent revenues, 2.34. And I live the dream, so I know the facts. Nobody can argue with me on that stuff. Just based on our mill rate currently and based on our grand list, if we take Saybrook, everybody likes to compare us to Saybrook, and take their $2.1 billion grand list number, supplant that into our budget, our mill rate goes down to 17. We don't have a $2.1 billion grand list. We have a $1.57 billion grand list. Simple math, guys. Nobody is doing well in the economy. We have growth in town. You have new developments going on. If you just have to drive down Route 1, and it's not just privately funded stuff, drive down by Stop and Shop, drive around and see the new houses. There's a subdivision that got approved the other night, 3-house subdivision. Things are happening. Our building department is busier than they've been in a long time. And I keep getting complaints from the building official that he needs help. That's a good problem. Things are happening, okay? Drive down Route 1, center of town, we have new sidewalks, new lights. The same 3 buildings that have been vacant for 20 years are still vacant. Well, maybe not 20. When Oscar passed away, he was in there, but Freeman chose not to rent to anybody. Those are the same 3 buildings. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed.
Thank you, Mr. Fritz. Mr. Cimino.
The question was about mill rate. And yes, the mill rate is one of the factors that determines your taxes. And yes, if you own any type of personal property in Old Saybrook and you own the exact same personal property in Clinton, you will pay exactly half of it in Old Saybrook for the exact same property. We need to lower our mill rate. That, in effect, will lower our taxes as well. Fortunately, we've defeated budgets that were unreasonably high each of the last 3 years. What did we end up with? Did we lose something? Well, we ended up with huge surpluses from the Board of Education, which makes up the biggest part of every municipality's taxes and budget. We're at $31 million right now. We give them plenty of money. However, 4 years ago, Major John Carbone, Clinton Police Department, was on the Board of Education, and he told me he felt strongly that the Pearson School could and should be closed, and we could consolidate based on the fact that student population is declining. And it took me all of a week to come up with a plan that we should move the library back into the center of town, into the Pearson building. We should then incorporate Board of Education offices into that building and make a beautiful community center, including a senior center. All the parking is there, and it belongs in the center of town. That would thereby free up the library building across the street, which is a very valuable piece of property. People don't realize that it's a much larger parcel than you think. And even the outlets themselves will be very interested in purchasing that for several millions of dollars. So what do? We lower the biggest portion of our budget and taxes, and we free up a building and put it back on the tax rolls, and we consolidate our Board of Education's budget. And one of the few times that you're able to lower your minimum budget requirement, which in itself is completely just a bad idea, but one of the few times is when you have declining enrollment and when you're closing up a school. And I think we need to take a good hard look at ideas like that so that we can really effectively lower our mill rate and our taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sengle would like a minute for rebuttal.
Well, I'd like to thank Mr. Fritz for making my point for me. He said nothing's happened. I think he was referring to downtown. That's right, nothing's happened. And it now becomes, what are you going to do about it? Which is another phrase that he's used at town selectmen meetings. And he made my point about the tax base. Okay, Old Saybrook has a much bigger tax base. Good for them. It means that people have a lower tax rate and therefore pay lower taxes. My point exactly. I think we do all agree on that, but who's going to get it done? Who's going to make it happen is the main thing. There's only so much spending you can cut. We have roads, we have police, fire, mostly, and most importantly, education, which we have to support, and we've got to get about it, and that's what I think should be done. Thank you.
And Mr. Fritz?
I appreciate Ben for taking my idea regarding the Pearson School potentially and moving the library and all that stuff, because I've been getting flack about that. I got it at a gala that night, for crying out loud. That's pretty funny. It's okay. It's part of a bigger study that's going on with the school facility study that's down in the process, and whether the library moves or not, everybody knows. And I said it at the meeting a few weeks ago at the library, the Clinton 2020 meeting. You know, if anybody doesn't think that property is very valuable, they're delusional. And yeah, something's going to happen someday, we hope. And we're going to work with the best fit for the entire community. It's just not what, growing tax base and raising revenues are great, but is it what the community as a whole wants as far as the needs of the community? And that's what I'm standing for, right? I look at the whole picture, not just one part of it.
And finally, a rebuttal from Mr. Cimino.
Mr. Carbone is readily available. Anyone can ask him. If I came up with that entire idea 4 years ago, yes, the administration recently got wind of it and is thinking about it. It should have happened already. And if it had, your mill rate would already be declined and your taxes would already be lower. And with regard to, it was mentioned about town services, we defeat the budgets and then we lose lifeguards, crossing guards, the dump hours are reduced. That's not convenient for anyone. But at the same time, they find the money to give themselves raises. There shouldn't be any raises if we're cutting safety positions.
Thank you.
Where do you see the town of Clinton in 10 years or 20 years? How do you suggest we get there?
Did everyone hear that? Great. So that starts again with Mr. Fritz.
Well, in 10 years, I see a new high school. I see something here. I'd love to have the Great Wolf Water Park. That would be fun. But no, I see the development here. We have an RFQ out. We're waiting, soliciting developers to come in and grow this place. I see a skating facility on Old Knott Road that's going to bring people to town. They're going to support the town because they're not just going to go there. They're going to go downtown and get something to eat. They're going to go here. They're going to go there while their kids are skating and having a good time. That's what I see. I see the property values in this town going up. I see an influx of new people coming to town because our educational facilities are better. We have recreational facilities that are above and beyond what everybody else has around us, and we have a destination in what we do with this site. I see that as the future of this town. Do we want to change the small town characteristics? That's going to be up to the voters to decide, because do we want to maintain our small downtown, quaint downtown? But what do we have down there? I agree, the library brings people to the center of town. When CVS potentially moves up to the Clinton Motel site across from the police station, I think that'd be a great spot for the library. Bring them back to the center of town, renovate that building. Have people come in and walk around, get something to eat, come to the library, hang out in the center of town. When the annex is done, we have a walkway going back to my fait accompli, the landing project. We'll have a place that people will go. Just having an ice cream guy back there this summer, people were hanging out back there. It's a great spot. Palm Beach is phenomenal. Our marine is phenomenal. We can't do more. The Marine District is something the zoning board has to look at to improve upon, reduce the restrictions on what can happen in the marine districts, bring retail, allow for mixed use in those areas so that people can have condominiums with retail shops below, restaurants, this and that. We're too restrictive in a lot of our zoning in this town. We need to look at that stuff. And that's where I see us in 10, 15, 20 years. Moving forward, I'm not going to be here. Hopefully I'll still be alive, but I'm not going to be here.
Thank you. Mr. Cimino?
That pie in the sky skating rink that you just heard about is nonsense. Please believe me, it's nonsense. The two Clinton fellas that you were told were going to be building this rink, Greg Gallo is not going to be building a rink. He's an attorney that's representing a group, and for whatever reason, they have refused to open their books or provide any financials on how they're planning to build this pie-in-the-sky rink. They did get $1 a year lease from us, and they told us that they were going to pay for all evaluation and testing. Okay, what happened? Now they want a $200,000 grant that is coming to the town of Clinton that is not site-specific, and they want to use that for their testing and evaluation. And then what? Now, we just learned a couple of weeks ago at the Selectmen's meeting, First Selectman tells us that the town of Clinton is earmarked to receive a $1.5 million remediation grant, and that the plan is to give that to this $2 company too. It's all wrong. It's all wrong. What we need to do is take that $200,000 valuation grant, and we need to evaluate the Unilever site. We need to evaluate the Bostitch site, the sites that are really prime locations for real development, not a pie-in-the-sky hockey rink by a $2 company. And the $1.5 million that we are earmarked to receive should be used in tandem with these private companies to solve, why is the Unilever property moving? Because everybody knows there's contamination. Okay, maybe not as contaminated as that dump, but it's far more important and a far higher priority that we get Unilever back on the market, fully producing for us jobs as well as revenue. And the Bostitch property is also in a prime location. Why isn't anyone interested in it? It's contaminated. Well, we have a rare opportunity here, a $200,000 evaluation and testing grant. Let's test those important properties. Let's not give it to some $2 company that passed you out 3 cents worth of paper that isn't worth anything. Also, with regard to where I see the town in the future, if we solve the wastewater treatment, the wastewater issue, there's no limit to how we can grow. We all know that. So how do we control it? As Mr. Fritz said, we do want to maintain the character of the town, but the way to control it is through planning and zoning and regulations, and the town deciding how much growth does it want and what type of growth. Thank you.
"10 years. You know, Mr. Fritz has a vision. I can share some of those ideas, some of that vision. But I think what it comes down to is the town leaders have had a lot of time to start on this path, and they really haven't done it. A lot of the projects that are talked about are government spending. Some of them are good, you know, fixing up the town dock and the facilities of town beach, things like that. They're all wonderful, but nothing seems to be part of an integrated plan. We have a planning and zoning commission. Mr. Fritz talked about the need for improved zoning. I couldn't agree more, but the lack of a town planner has really prevented that to happen. And there's no better example than the site we're sitting on. Planning and zoning had nobody to they're all volunteers like the rest of us. They had nobody to write these regulations. You know, you can talk about them all day long, but somebody during the daytime with the expertise and the network, talk to other experts in the state and so forth, and the council of governments and all of that needs to do that work. You know, I'm on a police commission. I can tell the chief or the commission can, you know, we want you to do this, we want you to investigate that, we want to report on this, it gets done. Planning and zoning has nobody like that. So we should have a town planner. So I agree with Mr. Fritz, we should do planning, but we're not doing any planning. So, you know, I can see this vision too. For this site, I always like the idea of a good quality hotel. This is not original with me. Kind of a mid-price point, maybe good restaurants, some mixed retail, and all of that. I got a little ticked off one day at Stop and Shop, this is about a year ago, so I called Stu Leonard's, and I thought, it took me about 6 phone calls to get through to somebody with authority, and you know, they indicated they weren't interested for various reasons, but the point is, it takes that kind of initiative by somebody to make this stuff happen. We can all have a vision, and we can all hope for lower taxes, but we got to have the development to make it happen. And again, to draw people here, not only have to have good school buildings, which we're going to have, but we need to have good curriculum, good programs, talented and gifted. Don't let anybody tell you any different. I talked to a lot of parents, and everyone to a person said there's no such program. They identify kids, but nothing happens. So with all those things happening, then we will have that vision of a great Clinton. It's good, it can be better. That's the bottom line. Thank you.
Great, and 1 minute rebuttal sections. If anyone wants to elect, we've been sort of rotating.
I'll jump on it and just say, listen, regarding the ice skating facility and the grant, it is site-specific. It was applied for the purpose of the remediation of the existing landfill, because the state likes to take sites that are town-owned, that are otherwise valueless, and convert them into something that can be used for economic development and promote jobs. That's why that grant was applied for with the 3-cent company, $2 company. Joe, you'll have fun Wednesday night with that one at the town meeting. And that's why it is site-specific. You can't take it and go to Unilever. You can't take a potential developer, and I've worked with potential developers on the Unilever site and the Boston site, and they've gone to DECD, and there have been several, and it just has, the cost benefit isn't there for them.
Would you like to, yeah?
Yes, please, that's not true. I spoke with Ilya Kilietika from the State Department of Economic Development. Kirk Carr from the CTA did as well. We were both told the same thing. That grant is not site-specific. In other words, you come out Wednesday night, you say, no, we do not want to give that $200,000 grant to a company that has not divulged anything. Who incorporation papers, they're required, by the way, by the state to provide their financials. They have not provided financials to the state of Connecticut. So come out Wednesday night, vote no. We don't want to give $200,000 to evaluate whether the dump is polluted or not. Instead, we want to use that grant, and we want to work with one of these owners of these prime properties in town and help develop that. And that's what's going to happen, I promise you. See if they take the grant away.
Thank you, Mr. Cimino.
You know, I love the idea of an ice rink. Like the gentleman to your left. You know, I'm not sure that's where it should go. It seems to me opening up the landfill with all the pollution that's reported to have gone on over the years could be a real Pandora's box. But I don't know. That's not up to me at this moment. The testing has to be done. Yes, the developer's going to pay for it. Now the state or us is going to pay for it. But I think the ice rink idea is a good one. And, you know, there's other sites. Maybe you can fit on this site. I don't know. But we got to make this kind of thing happen. So let's just go forward with this. And I think we got to stop the bickering and try to solve these problems. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates.
Every town wishes to invest in the best education for their children. What can you do to ensure our children are getting the best possible education available?
Starting with Mr. Cimino.
Personally, I would start with evaluations. I think that's where it needs to start, because clearly school systems in neighboring shoreline communities are doing a better job. I'm sorry I have to say that, but they are. Why are Guilford and Old Saybrook in the top 10 schools in the state of Connecticut? It's got to be, there's got to be something within the teaching system that isn't being done correctly. I think we need to evaluate, we need to reward good teachers, but we have to be brave enough to say, if someone's not doing the job, I'm sorry, we need to replace you. And I also feel that by looking at some of the newer teaching methods that are available now and taking advantage of technological advancement, we really can do some things that we haven't really explored before. I'm not in the school system. I graduated from Quinnipiac University, and my major was in business. And but I have had the experience of witnessing my nieces and nephews going through the school systems in Amity and in Madison. And I think that we really do need to take a look at what some of these other systems are doing and evaluate what we're doing and evaluate our teaching methods. Thank you.
Next is Mr. Sengle.
Okay, what am I going to do about education? Well, I'm not running for the Board of Education, but it occurred to me some very good people are running for the Board of Education. So, although I believe that, you know, leadership obviously by definition starts at the top. Good things have to start at the top. Selectmen, First Selectman, although they're not directly responsible for education, has a lot of influence, has a bully pulpit, has a lot of influence over the budget, so they can make things happen. But really think about the Board of Education, and I'm really proud of the candidates that my party has nominated this year. But I looked at other candidates too, and I found that there's other very good, highly qualified candidates. So I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit and say that, you know, I put the signs of Annalise Spaziano and Kim Buckley in my yard. And that's because I believe they're good people. Just as I believe our candidates, Ray Moore, who has a doctorate degree, and Dr. Mike Giordano, who grew up in this town, they're on the Board of Education ballot. And 4 people are going to get elected. And I would suggest you start right there by electing those good people who will take control of the Board of Education and start running the meetings. We can't have the administration running the meetings. We need people on the Board of Ed who will ask questions, say no when necessary, and make changes when necessary. But again, when I went around and knocked on doors and talked to parents, I can't tell you how many said, you know, we're thinking of leaving when our kids get a little older, or we're going to send them to private school. And I know families who send their kids to private school. Well, there's a reason for that. And once that happens, you're on the road to decline, because your average scores and performance are going to go down, then your school enrollment's going to go down, and that has a whole raft of bad consequences. One is going to be the budget, but I think even worse than that, if you have a small school population, you can never justify kind of those specialized courses. I always think of my own son who was taking German in high school, and population was declining, and the German teacher was getting older, so they put together this kind of phony study actually to say that nobody was interested in German, and boom, the program goes, the teacher retired, that's the end of it, never to come back. Well, that can happen in a small school system that's in decline. So it all gets back to get families to move here. It becomes healthier. They move here because it's a good school system. It helps the economy. The economic development and the school system are tied. They're linked, closely linked. We got to have both. That's why I support both. So, I mean, that's my focus, and I'll do everything I can to make that happen, because we don't want our kids going off to private school. Again, if they are, there's something
Thank you,
wrong.
Mr. Sengle.
Okay, so improving our school system. Well, since 2005, and no direct relation to me, our school system has gotten better. Our district has gotten better. And again, I go back to my father and my mother. My father, 33 years, hated that things were judged on test scores. Well, unfortunately, in this day and age, we are judged on test scores, and our scores are going up. Now you want to compare us to Guilford and Saybrook, and we have 300 mobile manufactured homes in this town. The demographics are different. Doesn't mean the kids aren't smart, but those are people that are working hard just to keep food on the table. They're not home at night when those kids get home to help them with their homework and to do the things that most of us in this room do on a regular basis with our own children. Those are things you have to consider. You know, and it's not the brick and mortar. You know, when this thing with the high school came up, we always talked about it's going to make our kids smarter. It's not going to make our kids smarter. It's going to make us have a little bit more pride in our high school, make us have a little pride in our community as far as the school we go to. And I really think a lot of the reasons that people leave to go to private school is because of this building. You're judging a book by its cover. They don't see what happens inside. I see what happens inside. I have a sophomore here. It's a great place. Great learning goes on. For the kids that want to learn and for the families that have the ability when those kids get home to push them and pump them and do that. It's not just in the school, it's in the community. You know, I hate to quote Hillary Clinton, but I have to. You know, it takes a village. And that's the truth. It truly is, it takes a village. Putting money into it, throwing money against the wall, just like when we talk to the cops and we talk, throwing guys into the equation and doing this, that doesn't solve the problems. It's a community problem. And it's gotten a lot better here. We have a great relationship with the superintendent of schools. We work well together. We always have since I've been here with the Board of Ed. The animosity isn't there that there is in a lot of towns, and we've interviewed for finance directors / business managers. They couldn't believe how well we worked together. You know, Deb Grass did a good job in her 20 plus years as Board of Ed, and it's sad to see her go. We're happy, we're fortunate, and the Democrats screwed up. We put 3 great people up because we screwed up when we were looking at the charter and what we could run. We're fortunate we have 3 great candidates. I hope all of them could win. Unfortunately, only 2 can. But we're lucky, and we're lucky that the Republicans put up 2 great candidates. And Mr. Winiger from the Clinton First is a great guy. We're fortunate in this town. We have quality people who want to step up and do the job, and all I can do from my position as a town position is support them, work with them. We work together. We just joined a consortium with Learn for our prescription drug reducing costs in town with Jack and I, working with that. Our health insurance costs have come down because we work together on that. We're really working together. Thank you.
And 1 minute rebuttals.
The child's intelligence level and their ability to learn has nothing to do with what type of housing they come out of. I think we all know that. So I also believe that yes, parents need to get more involved, and it's not always that easy now because both parents are working, but yes, that does affect a child's ability to a child needs to understand just how important education is. And I do not agree that the Board of Education has been doing its job. I'm sorry, but I have to say that. I have to be honest with you. I think that they've allowed the superintendent way too much authority, and it's the tail wagging the dog, and that they have not understood that they are supposed to be overseeing the superintendent and the school system. I'm hoping that with the change of some seats, that we will see a better attitude towards that and a better understanding of just what their role is, but thank you.
So was that his 3-minute section? Was that his 3-minute section? I apologize. That was the 1 minute? Okay, great. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you know, parents are the most important thing in education. Parents come first, then teachers, and then other things in the school. Culture, you know, the coarsening of the culture doesn't help, but it's parents, and it's teachers, and it's discipline, frankly, which is sadly missing these days. And I would agree it's not the house you come out of, but what you want to attract here is, and unfortunately we have a lot of single parent homes which provides additional stress, and we're not going to fix that problem. But we want to market the town so that young families will come here whose priority is the education of their children. And if we have an improving school system with the proper programs like Gifted and Talented, as I said, they will come and it will raise the level of the schools along with the work the Board of Ed and the superintendent are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sengle. Mr. Fritz.
Okay, not to quote another favorite of mine, but build it and they will come. And people are already starting. People are already talking about coming to Clinton because we're building a new high school. They see something on the horizon that's going to be good for their kids. When I moved here in 2000, Sandra and I, what are we looking for? What kind of schools do you have? What kind of facilities do you have? What kind of environment are my kids going to grow up with? You know, and that's why one of the reasons we picked Clinton. Our kids have grown up in a great environment, and it's only getting better. And that's where you build your community. You know, we have an aging population in the state of Connecticut. Well, how do we get young people to stay here? One, we gotta make affordable places for them to live. Two, make your schools better.
Thank you. We're moving on to audience selected questions.
How do you envision making more town buildings green? And energy-wise.
As opposed to pink. Start with Mr. Sengle.
Okay, how do we make more town buildings green? I'm not 100% positive on that. I know about insulating and storm windows and that sort of thing. I think one way you do it is maybe by having less town buildings. Maybe sounds funny, but town owns an awful lot of properties. Some have buildings on them, some are just vacant land that we own and we don't seem to want to get rid of and get on our grand list so we can increase our tax base. I think of the old police department. I lobbied as much as I could as a private citizen that should have been at least a restaurant, and we could have leased it. We didn't have to sell it. You know, make it a restaurant. I heard all the excuses. My opinion is that was targeted to be more town office space from day one, probably from the day it ceased to be a police department. So when I look at that, I say now we're adding another town building, and I'm sure it'll be beautiful, but it's more government spending. It's not economic development. It's taking a beautiful spot in downtown on the Indian River, and that could be an incubator. That could be a destination. That's a key word for economic development. You want a destination. So something that would draw people. They get out of their cars, they stop, they walk over. Oh, let's see what that is. Let's see. Heck, they probably go in the town hall. It's such a beautiful building. And so, to me, you know, that is the way. I know we've done a lot in our buildings to try. We've gone to natural gas, you know, insulation, things like that. Probably solar panels in the future. That's great. But I think in the end, if we can get rid of some unneeded property, it'll help everybody. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to jump in? Mr. Cimino?
I would like to say that there's only one way that you're going to make town buildings more green, and I assume that you mean both municipal buildings as well as towns around, buildings all around town that are owned privately. And that is really to make it make economic sense. And I think the government's doing a good job of providing the right kind of incentives, and I think you do see that as new construction is going up, and as buildings are being renovated, I do think that the green aspect of construction is kind of booming right now because it makes financial sense. That's really what it comes down to. If it makes financial sense, the owner will do what is also responsible for the planning. Thanks.
Well, regarding town buildings, I can start with the newest one that's going to be going up, which is the high school. That building is being built to high efficiency standards. All right, it's not LEED, it's high efficiency standards, which is just a little bit below. That is something the building committee has been a proponent of, and the state now requires. The annex building, again, what we can do to that building to bring it up to high efficiency standards is being done with the equipment, with the windows, insulation. Everything we can do to that building to bring it up to high efficiency standards is being done, as what was done with the town hall renovation project. We turned down the $200,000 grant. Everything, well, we get these grants. We turned down $200,000 from the state that I applied for historic renovation because they said, no, you can't put those windows in. You have to scrape and paint the old ones, and you can't put this in because you're gonna have to hire an archaeologist to put in new walkways. It was gonna cost us more money. We put windows in that people think are beautiful, they look just like the other ones. They're thermal pain, they're high efficiency. We put ductless air units in. That building is running so much more efficient, as was mentioned by Phil. Natural gas. I've converted almost every building in town now to natural gas. The library was running on biodiesel, which was another green incentive that we had. We converted that last year. We were part of the Connecticut Solar Challenge. I'm going to have somebody come out and see if my house can take solar panels on the roof. As long as it doesn't interfere with my DirecTV for the NFL Sunday ticket, we can do that. And Sandra wants to pay the bill. And then we're also doing the HES, which is the home energy survey. People in town get a home energy survey done by CLMP, one of their contractors. It costs $50 to $90, depending on what your heating service is. Of that money, half of it goes to Families Helping Families, right? Which is a great cause in Clinton, which we fund the fuel assistance programs with through social services. We are working on this stuff. Through this HES and the Connecticut Clean Energy Fund, we're building up credits. We already have a $5,000 grant in place, which we can put towards, which we'd like to do, be nice, solar lights at the beach. So when you drive into the town beach, you're gonna have beautiful solar lights someday, maybe, hopefully. We're working towards that stuff. Everything we're doing, our recycling programs at the dump, you know, when you go in, oh, the punch passes or this, that, you don't use as much because of the recycling at the beach. Andrew Roos is flapping. At the ball fields, we have recycling containers. We're moving as we can, as proficiently as we can, towards green, towards recycling, keeping our town clean, keeping it for a place for our kids and your grandkids to have, you know, a wonderful place, a clean place when they grow up.
Okay, are we, I thought there was a 1 minute rebuttal. Never mind. That's audience. Okay, we don't have rebuttals in audience. Anyway, so let's move on to the next question.
Do you think Clinton planning and zoning is business friendly? If not, what should change?
And does anyone have any preliminary ideas? Mr. Sengle.
Are they friendly? Well, you know, that kind of thing is not the friendliest process to go through, but I think part of the problem, I mentioned it before, that, you know, with no economic development coordinator and no town planner, if somebody walks into town hall, there's nobody to lead them through the process. And we have no economic development website, and there's no flow chart. I think they're working on one now. But believe me, all these towns do these things. They kiss the feet of businesses to stay, to come, to expand. And if you want to compete with them, you have to do the same thing. We're not on an island. Planning and zoning has a planning function. And I volunteered to be on their subcommittee looking at the 10-year plan of conservation of development. And I got to tell you, it's heavy lifting, requires a lot of expertise. Most of us volunteers don't have it. So I think if we want to improve planning and zoning, I've heard a lot of zoning ideas, but again, remember, it takes somebody to implement it. Just because somebody has a good idea that we should perhaps limit where medical marijuana is sold, we have to have a regulation. And somebody has to write the regulation, and it has to be scheduled to go through public hearings and that sort of thing. Planning and zoning now, and this new interchange group is doing a good job of planning what can go in this area. Mr. Fritz, I understand, was originally against and testified against having a 1-year moratorium on this piece of property. That was a mistake. I know he says it wasted time, but this project that's going on this site is for virtually all time. We've got to get it right. We've got to get not only the maximum tax dollars out of it, but we got to make it something that will draw people to Clinton, but we already have something that draws people to Clinton. It's across the street. But we got to have something that causes them to stay or linger and maybe go downtown and maybe go to the marina and that sort of thing. So you got to plan these projects. And if we didn't have this moratorium, some people even said, oh, they're trying to stop the new school. Again, that's kind of crazy talk. Then we're trying to stop the new school. This is all zone residential, called R20. residential half-acre lots. There had to be new zoning, or we would limit our ability to control what goes here. We got to control what goes here. So planning and zoning is very important, and we need to support it. And that support starts at the top of the First Selectman.
Thank you, Mr. Sengle. Mr. Fritz?
Yeah, and having actually served on the planning and zoning board, I understand, how difficult it can be. And when I was on the board, we had several large developments come into town. Of course, that was back in 2003, 2004, when things were good and people were moving. Since then, it's kind of slowed down. But what I will say in regards to the moratorium, which I did testify against, and what I will say in regards to the first RFQ we sent out, some of the comments, because we only had one response to that first RFQ for this site, some of the comments were, there's a moratorium in place. That doesn't sound like the town is business friendly, okay? And I know several developers, local and far, that have tried to do business in town, and more recently than not. And one in particular that now has a business in the center of town that wants to move a little bit further east was kind of scared off by some of the comments came from a couple of planning and zoning members. We don't want that to happen. People come to me and I sit down, you want me to bring Tom Lane in, you want me to this, let me know how I can help. That's how it works. That's how it works. Unfortunately, I can only do so much, then it has to go to the zoning board. The idea of a moratorium was a bad idea. Whether it's a residential zone or not, didn't matter. As I said when I testified, you got 2 years to figure this out, guys. It's not like anybody's breaking ground tomorrow. You don't need 2 years to figure this out. It's not that hard. Now, we finally came back to the idea that I brought up when I testified about the moratorium of having a small committee, planning members, economic development, selectmen, finance, local business people, to form this committee, which we call the Interchange Development Committee. It was my idea. Ben's going to say it was his, but it was my idea, and it's on the tape. And we're there. We put the RFQ out. We've changed it, and now we're going to reissue the RFQ, less restrictive than the original one. And we're working with our consultant. That's what we need to do. That's what we need to do with our zoning board. And I agree. They're laymen. They're volunteers. They can't do it all themselves. We just approved hiring a consultant to provide planning services at this point. I couldn't help that the budgets got banged down 3 times several years ago. And at that point, the planner, to me, which I supported vehemently for my first election and on in that term, everybody said, you got to get rid of the planner. That's the one position we had to have a zoning officer. We needed a building officer. We needed this. We needed that. Assessors. We have to have all of those things by statute. The planner is not something that's required, and that's why the planner went. So it was unfortunate, but that's why the planner went.
And Mr. Cimino.
My favorite part about campaigning this election season has been walking around town and speaking with all of the residents. And, the thing that really strikes me is everybody's just got questions. What's going on with the old police station building? What's going on downtown? What's going on with Unilever? What's going on with the wastewater? And nobody knows what's going on now. You may know that I have a tendency to write some letters in the Harbor News, and the other thing that I found that I really appreciated was people said, oh, we read all of your letters in the Harbor News. One of the things that I've been harping on is just how bad our Planning and Zoning Commission has been in recent years. And as you know, we had a couple of members who violated our ethics ordinance and voted when they had interests, financial interests in applications. That is absolutely rule number 1. You need to recuse yourself if you have an interest, okay? To the credit of the Board of Selectmen, they asked those 2 members to step down. They refused. The Republican Town Committee asked them to step down. They refused. The New Haven Register came out with an editorial. Step down. They refused. They will be replaced this time around. And that's going to make a huge difference. I hate to use the word, but we've had corruption on the Planning and Zoning Commission. We also had an ineffective, bad chairman. And now we have Attorney Anselmo D'Elia. Ask anyone who's been watching planning and zoning and they will tell you that the difference is measurable and huge. You now have a more responsible Planning and Zoning Commission, and with the removal of those two individuals who should have left a long time ago, you're going to see more responsible decisions. With regard to this RFP, RFQ, I just want to say that I've been an active member of the Planning Committee for the Planning and Zoning Commission. There was talk that there was a big box store that was going to come to this location, and that was moving forward. To stop it, and Sengle and the Planning and Zoning Commission put this moratorium in place. But it had a real time constraint. What I suggested was, and yes, it is on tape, and yes, you can ask the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission, was to put out a request for, first, a request for qualifications. We want to know that we're dealing with people who can do what they say they're going to do. And then a request for proposals, and that was the second phase.
We're going to third question. No, we're going to rebuttals. So, no, he never even got to answer. I apologize. Mr. Sengle.
I thought I answered about planning and zoning function. Yeah, I thought I did.
Closing remarks. Okay. 3 minutes for each candidate. 3 minutes for each candidate. Again, yellow on 20 seconds. And I believe, Mr. Fritz, you went third in the opening remarks. Please go first.
I want to thank you again. Thank Mr. Bergman. Thank you, young gentlemen. Thanks to the political club. I started in a similar form back in 2005 when I ran against Arthur Isaacson in a tough race. He lost to former First Selectman Jim McCusker by 89 votes the year before, 2 years before. And I've had the privilege of serving this town for the last 8 years. And there's been a lot of good stuff happening in this town. I mean, you don't have to go very far to see the improvements. You don't have to go very far to see the new programs that we've initiated, the grants we've gotten, all of the things that have been done in the last 8 years. The town is in great shape financially, physically, our infrastructure, our facilities, everything is great. I mean, yeah, economic development, but who's not suffering since 2008? Anybody that thinks we're an anomaly regarding that is blinded to the light. But I didn't do it alone. I had great help over the years. I'll start with Dolly Mazzetti, Ed Heidick, Arthur Isaacson, Dave Townsend during my first 2 years, okay? My first 4 years, and then Jerry Dunn, Dolly, because Ed passed away, Arthur and David my second 2 years. And then I've been fortunate with Carol the last 4 years on the board, with Dolly, who disappeared, Tom, who disappeared, you know, Ray Abel did a great job. And then now I've had John, Carol, Lynn, and Ray. It's been a team effort. Regardless of the political sides that we are on, the agenda's been for the town of Clinton. I want to thank everybody that I've been able to serve with over the last 8 years for that. Dolly, it's been tough to do it without you. Lynn's holding the torch pretty well. She tells me to shut up every once in a while. And I want to do this again for another 2 years. I want to keep this town going forward, keep the things we got going forward. And I just love this town. I love you people. I have no agenda. I have no agenda other than the town of Clinton. That's what I'm here for. You, your families, my family, the town of Clinton. And I thank you so much for letting me serve you, and I hope you'll give me another opportunity to do 2 more years. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again for coming. You know, I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed doing this. You know, I like to tell people that I want this job. I've got the experience. I've got the energy, thank God. But it's, you know, I'm not going to give you a trip down memory lane with all the people I've served, because a lot of them are in different towns and states. But I have served wherever I've been. It's taught me a lot. It's taught me humility. It's taught me how to ask questions, and I can guarantee you one thing: I'll play it straight down the middle. Fair is fair, honest is honest. I want to have an open government, and I want everything above board. And in the discourse in town, we've got to tone it all down. And I've tried hard personally, and I think I've succeeded, to do my part on that. So I think we've got to move on. We cannot keep fighting the battles of the past. That's what generals do. They still building their armies for the Cold War, some people would tell you. But I think it's about the future. I think you have to ask yourselves, is Clinton better off than it was 8 years ago when Willie was first elected? You could also ask yourself, are you better off than you were 22 years ago? That's the last time a Republican sat in the first selectman seat. Some of you may not know that. You may be shocked. You may be happy about it. I don't know. But anybody that knows me knows I can work with anybody. I can do it with good humor. I respect other people. I'm going to follow the charter. And it's just going to be above board. Any project or proposal or spending idea, if it's worth its weight, if it's worth its salt, will stand up to any scrutiny, any questioning. I don't like this idea that's come about in town. If you question something, you're now a mortal enemy of that project. If we don't question things, we'll never get good projects. It's part of the process. And these projects, like right here on this interchange zone, which is what they're calling it now, it's an evolution. So it's okay to question things. It's what we do in the end. We've got to get good people. I want to serve you. Willie already said it, but I have no agenda but yours. I really have no agenda. I'm not in business here. I don't have a million long-term relationships. That hurts me sometimes. But I've had life's experience, military experience, a lot of educational experience, and I just want to put it to work for you, and I hope you can give me that chance. Thank you very much.
Mr. Cimino.
I'd like to take a second and thank all of my fellow candidates on the Clinton First Party. What we're doing has never been done before. We started with a group of people who just believe that the town is not heading in the right direction and does not have the right answers for the future of Clinton. And we worked really, really hard to get our message out, and we would like the opportunity, all of us, to take Clinton in a better direction, to provide a better alternative. We all love Clinton. Everyone in this room, the three of us up here right now, we all want to do what's in the best interest of Clinton. But who's got a plan that's really going to move Clinton forward in the right direction? Who's going to solve the wastewater treatment issue in a way that will allow the town to grow responsibly? And who's got a plan that's going to minimize what is going to be a financial apocalypse? We've got the cost of the high school. The bonding is going to start hitting the books. We've got, that's $65 million, and then there's these side projects that we're not hearing about yet, but they're going to be added on too. We've got a $55 million wastewater plan that you're going to hear about soon that allows for no economic development, and we're going to have to pay for that. Our taxes are increasing every year, and we're told, well, you can't stop that. I really believe that we've had some time here this evening. I've tried to communicate to you all of our thoughts, my thoughts, and I would appreciate your vote on November 5th. And the other thing that I would like to ask you to do is please come out Wednesday night and vote down this proposal to give $200,000 of our tax money. None of these grants are free. And if you were to, Forbes magazine came out with an article recently, and it talks about just, the title of the article is, how did rich Connecticut morph into one of the worst economies in America? And it points to two things. It points to taxes, and it points to our political leaders. Now we know that some of them have done things that are way out there and have ended up in prison. But we're not just talking about that. We're talking about the need to elect responsible people who really take the time to understand and think about how we're going to move forward as a community and as a state. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cimino. And with that, thank you for attending tonight's First Selectman debate. We at the Morgan School believe that democracy is worth defending. Please exercise your vote for the candidates who best reflect your vision of Clinton's future. Thanks again to the candidates, and anyone wishing to speak with board candidates can do so in the lobby.